The story begins in a dimly lit dojo somewhere in Tokyo. The air is thick with the scent of polished wood and the faint tang of sweat from countless hours of training. Students practice quietly, their movements precise and disciplined. But that calm is shattered as the door swings open, and in walks a figure who commands the room without a word, Steven Seagal. His presence alone seems to bend the air, a mixture of silent authority and lethal potential. A senior sensei, sensing something different about this foreigner, steps forward. He asks why Seagal has come to the dojo, mentioning the honor of their lineage and the strict code they live by. Seagal's expression doesn't change. There is no arrogance, no challenge, just a calm that unnerves everyone in the room. Whispers ripple through the students as they notice his hands, relaxed yet ready, as if prepared for any threat. The sensei, realizing that Seagal is no ordinary fighter, signals his top students to demonstrate their skill. One by one, they approach him. Each student launches a flurry of strikes, their techniques sharp and practiced. But in a blur, Seagal neutralizes each attack, redirecting force, exploiting weaknesses, and maintaining perfect balance. Seconds pass, and the students are left on the floor, bewildered and defeated. The sensei's eyes widen. He has seen many masters in his life, but none with this calm, unstoppable precision. The narrative then shifts back in time to the streets of Japan, years before, when Seagal first arrived in the country. He was already known in martial arts circles as a man of immense skill, but the local underworld had little idea of who they were about to provoke. At a small, smoky bar frequented by gangsters and yakuza, whispers of the foreign fighter had reached the wrong ears. Men with reputations for brutality smirked, certain they could intimidate this outsider. They had no idea what they were walking into. The first confrontation occurs subtly. A group of men approaches Seagal with false smiles and thinly veiled threats, trying to embarrass him in front of the bar patrons. They throw careless punches, expecting resistance. But Seagal doesn't just defend himself. His movements are fluid, almost meditative, as he redirects each strike, using the aggressor's own momentum against them. Within moments, the men are on the floor, bruised, humiliated, and completely unable to comprehend what just happened. The bar falls silent, the only sound being Seagal's measured breathing. But the tension is far from over. The gangsters, now burning with pride and shame, regroup outside. They plan to corner Seagal, to prove that he is nothing more than a foreign pretender who has no place in their world. Night falls, and the quiet streets become the stage for an encounter that would become the stuff of legend. Lanterns cast long shadows, and the flickering light catches Seagal's calm, unyielding gaze. The first attack comes swift and brutal, a test of courage more than skill. But each assault is met with an almost supernatural defense. Hands, elbows, and feet move with perfect timing, deflecting, redirecting, and neutralizing. As the fight continues, the gangsters realize their mistake. They are not facing a man, but a force of nature. Seagal's mastery of Aikido allows him to control the battlefield without ever seeming aggressive. Every movement is calculated, every counter precise. The attacker's own energy becomes their undoing. A man lunges recklessly, only to find himself thrown into a wall. Another swings a knife, and it's promptly turned against him, his momentum carrying him to the ground in defeat. It is chaos controlled by the calm eye of a master. Witnessing these events, a few locals begin to murmur in awe. The legend of Seagal's skills spreads rapidly, not through boastful words, but through actions so undeniable that no one can deny it. Even seasoned fighters are forced to reconsider their assumptions, realizing that this foreigner is not just skilled. He is ruthless, yet calculated. There is a lesson in every strike, a story in every movement. The story shifts to a different angle, the psychological battle. Seagal doesn't merely fight to win. He fights to dominate without hatred. His opponents are often left confused, overwhelmed by his calm, by the absence of visible emotion. This mental aspect makes him unpredictable and terrifying. The gangsters, fueled by pride, cannot anticipate his next move. Every feint, every subtle shift in balance, leaves them exposed. One particular moment stands out. A towering man, known for his strength and brutality, steps forward with the intent to humiliate Seagal publicly. He sneers, mocking his calm demeanor, assuming that arrogance will force a reaction. Seagal doesn't flinch. The man attacks, throwing a powerful, overconfident strike. In a fluid motion, Seagal sidesteps, guides the man's momentum, and sends him crashing to the floor with a technique so precise that it leaves no room for retaliation. The lesson is clear. Skill, control, and composure are more potent than brute force. From there, Seagal begins to navigate a network of challenges. Other gangsters, trained fighters, and even corrupt officials who underestimate him. Each encounter escalates tension, yet each is also an opportunity to demonstrate his mastery. Small victories accumulate, painting a picture of a man who is not only physically dominant, but also strategically superior. His intelligence, observation, and ability to read opponents make him almost untouchable. Interspersed in these confrontations are moments of reflection. Seagal considers honor, respect, and the purpose behind fighting. He never fights out of anger. Each move serves a purpose. These philosophical moments elevate the story, giving depth beyond physical confrontations. Viewers are not just entertained by fights. They are drawn into the mindset of a true martial artist, understanding the discipline and mental strength required to reach such a level. The tension peaks when the most notorious gang in the area decides to challenge him collectively. They corner Seagal in a secluded warehouse, confident that numbers will overwhelm him. The fight begins with a barrage of attacks, weapons drawn, shouts echoing through the cold air. But Seagal remains centered, almost serene. Every strike is countered, every grab reversed, and every attempt to corner him fails. By the end, the attackers lie defeated, disoriented, and utterly humiliated. The message is unmistakable. Underestimating Seagal is not just foolish, it is dangerous. Following this climactic sequence, Seagal leaves the scene with a calm that contrasts sharply with the chaos he has left behind. Word spreads quickly. Whispers of his skill and ruthlessness circulate, creating a legend that few dare to challenge. His reputation grows, not through boastful claims, but through undeniable evidence. Anyone who crosses him risks immediate humiliation or worse. The narrative then returns to the dojo, where the master who first challenged him now approaches with a mixture of awe and respect. The tension between teacher and student shifts into a mutual recognition of skill and mastery. Seagal demonstrates a forbidden technique, the culmination of years of training and discipline, leaving even the most seasoned practitioners in shock. The students watch silently, understanding that they are witnessing a level of martial prowess rarely seen in a lifetime. Moments later, Seagal reflects quietly, understanding that true mastery is not about dominance alone, but the balance between strength, intelligence, and moral clarity. It is this philosophy, coupled with unrivaled skill, that has allowed him to survive, thrive, and command respect wherever he goes. The story concludes not with arrogance or celebration, but with quiet respect. The gangsters who tried to humiliate him now understand the consequences of underestimating a master. The dojo students absorb the lesson of control, patience, and true skill. And for the audience, the tale of Steven Seagal serves as a thrilling, adrenaline-fueled journey into the mind and body of a martial arts legend, an unstoppable force who is as calm as he is deadly. Even today, whispers of these encounters circulate in martial arts circles, in bars, in streets where legends are told in hushed tones. The story of the foreigner who walked into Japan, faced humiliation, and turned it into an unstoppable display of skill remains unforgettable. And for those watching, it is more than a story. It is a lesson. Never underestimate a man who has mastered his body, his mind, and his discipline. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more high-octane recaps of legendary fighters and unforgettable confrontations. Until next time, stay sharp, stay disciplined, and never underestimate the power of true skill. The aftermath of the warehouse battle left the streets buzzing. Word spread quickly that a foreigner had walked into the heart of the Yakuza's territory and survived. Not only survived, but humiliated some of the most feared men in the city. Seagal's presence became a whisper of awe among locals and gangsters alike. Those who had once mocked him now glanced nervously whenever his name came up. Even hardened veterans in the martial arts scene found themselves curious, wondering what made this man so different, so untouchable. But Seagal did not linger in the shadows to bask in his reputation. He moved forward deliberately, knowing that every encounter was a test, not of ego, but of skill and discipline. His next challenge came in the form of a high-ranking Yakuza enforcer, a man renowned for his brute strength and ruthless efficiency. The enforcer, confident in his own abilities, sought to assert dominance over the foreign fighter, viewing Seagal as nothing more than a novelty, a foreigner out of his depth. The confrontation took place in a secluded courtyard, lit only by dim lanterns that cast eerie shadows across the stone path. The enforcer charged first, his attack a flurry of aggressive strikes aimed to overwhelm. But Seagal, calm as a still lake, absorbed the force, redirected it, and turned the momentum against the attacker. Each move Seagal executed was precise, deliberate, and almost poetic. Within moments, the enforcer lay incapacitated, gasping for breath, unable to comprehend what had just unfolded. Witnessing this, the gangsters who had followed him now realized that this was no ordinary fighter. Seagal's skill transcended physical strength. It was as much psychological warfare as it was martial prowess. His opponents were not simply defeated. They were left questioning their own limitations, their overconfidence, and the very essence of their training. Seagal's reputation spread not just because of brute victories, but because of his method. Each fight was a lesson in control. He never attacked recklessly. He never sought to harm without purpose. It was this discipline that instilled both fear and respect. The Yakuza began to whisper of a foreigner who was calm in the storm, whose every movement was calculated, and whose presence alone could silence a room. Meanwhile, Seagal's time in Japan was also a journey of learning and observation. He frequented dojos, studying traditional techniques while silently incorporating his own methods. He understood that true mastery was not simply about defeating others. It was about understanding energy, balance, and the flow of combat. And when challenges arose, whether from gangsters, corrupt officials, or reckless fighters, Seagal's understanding allowed him to remain several steps ahead at all times. One night, a particularly dangerous challenge emerged. A group of gangsters, fueled by pride and previous humiliation, set a trap, hoping to finally put an end to the foreigner's growing legend. They lured Seagal to an abandoned warehouse, expecting to ambush him with weapons and numbers on their side. But Seagal, ever observant, noticed subtle signs, the arrangement of crates, footprints in the dust, the faint scent of oil from hidden engines. He moved silently, predicting their positions before they even struck. The first attack came from a man wielding a metal pipe. Seagal sidestepped effortlessly, using the attacker's momentum to flip him onto a stack of crates. Another assailant lunged with a knife, and Seagal, with a controlled sweep of his arm, disarmed him, sending the blade clattering across the floor. Each move was efficient, economical, and devastatingly effective. By the time the remaining gangsters realized what was happening, they were already at a disadvantage too great to overcome. Seagal's mastery was not limited to hand-to-hand combat. He could use the environment to his advantage. Walls, floors, even improvised objects became extensions of his technique. Every confrontation was a demonstration of awareness, strategy, and fluidity. By the end of the night, the gangsters lay scattered, bruised, and utterly humiliated. The legend of Seagal's ruthlessness had grown exponentially. As dawn approached, Seagal disappeared into the quiet streets, leaving behind only whispers and awe. The gangsters who had tried to challenge him would remember the encounter for the rest of their lives, not because of hatred, but because of respect. They had witnessed a man who could dominate not through anger, but through precision, control, and mastery of mind and body. Seagal's next encounter would test not just his martial skills, but his patience and moral code. A rival dojo, threatened by his growing influence, sought to provoke him publicly. They challenged him to a demonstration of skill, hoping to expose him as a fraud in front of local dignitaries. Seagal accepted, not out of pride, but because he understood the importance of teaching lessons through action rather than words. The demonstration began with subtle movements, each participant showing off technique after technique. But when it was Seagal's turn, the room seemed to shift. Time slowed. Each movement was deliberate yet fluid, blending power with grace. One opponent after another attempted to land a strike, only to be redirected, balanced, or gently but decisively neutralized. It was not violence for its own sake. It was controlled, precise, and humbling. The audience watched in silent awe as Seagal demonstrated what it truly meant to be a master. The rival dojo's master stepped forward, pride burning in his eyes. He was a man with decades of experience, confident that his reputation would shield him from defeat. But as he approached Seagal, he felt an unfamiliar weight in the air, a quiet, unshakable authority that seemed to emanate from the foreigner. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the room held its breath. The first strike came not from Seagal, but from his opponent, a swift, precise punch aimed at the temple. Seagal's body moved before thought could dictate, a blur of controlled motion. The punch was deflected effortlessly, the force redirected in a way that unbalanced the attacker, sending him stumbling backwards without harm. The master tried again, each attempt more forceful than the last, yet each was met with the same calm precision. It was a battle of skill and composure rather than brute strength. Seagal's movements flowed like water, adapting to every strike, every feint, every attempt at domination. The crowd watched, mesmerized, as the master who had once trained students to fear defeat now faced a living example of true mastery. Within minutes, it was over, not through rage, not through aggression, but through control. The rival master bowed deeply, acknowledging Seagal's superiority. A lesson had been imparted without a single word. Mastery is about understanding, not dominance. Word of Seagal's dojo victories spread across the city. Students from other schools came, not to fight him, but to learn from him. Even those who had sought to humiliate him now approached with reverence, hoping to understand the discipline and technique that made him untouchable. Seagal became more than a fighter. He became a living legend, a teacher, and a reminder of what true skill, patience, and respect could achieve. But not all challenges were so honorable. There were those who sought to use treachery, relying on numbers, weapons, and cunning to defeat the man who had humbled them. One fateful night, a gang known for their cruelty and cunning planned an ambush in the narrow alleyways near the docks. They had studied him, expecting to exploit perceived weaknesses, confident that they could finally reclaim their pride. Seagal arrived as if unaware, calm and unhurried, moving through the fog-laden streets. The gang struck suddenly, rushing him from multiple angles. But Seagal, as always, remained composed. Each strike was neutralized before impact. Weapons were disarmed and redirected, momentum turned against the aggressors. The narrow alleys became a stage for his unmatched precision, every movement purposeful and deadly. One by one, the attackers were incapacitated, bruised, disoriented, and unable to understand how a single man had defeated them all. Those who survived fled, carrying with them stories that would grow with every telling. A story of a foreigner who walked into their world and emerged unscathed, a man whose mastery made him untouchable. Seagal's reputation was now cemented, but his story was not just about combat. It was about respect, discipline, and the quiet power of skill mastered over decades. Those who witnessed him fight understood instinctively that force alone was meaningless without intelligence, patience, and awareness. It was this philosophy that elevated Seagal above mere mortals. Even as time passed, the encounters continued. Small challenges arose, often orchestrated by those who misunderstood his calm demeanor as weakness. Each time, Seagal responded not with anger, but with precision, patience, and unshakable control. His actions were a demonstration of a singular truth. True mastery is not measured by the number of fights won, but by the ability to remain composed, adapt, and turn every challenge into an opportunity for learning and demonstration of skill. In the final encounter, Seagal faced a coalition of the most notorious gangsters in the city, determined to finally end his legend. They cornered him in an abandoned factory, weapons drawn, arrogance radiating from every face. But Seagal's presence alone altered the atmosphere. Tension crackled in the air, and even his opponents felt a shiver of unease. The fight erupted with intensity. Metal clashed against metal, fists struck with force, and yet, through every attack, Seagal remained untouchable. He moved like a shadow, deflecting, redirecting, and controlling every moment. Every opponent who attempted to overwhelm him became their own undoing. One lunged recklessly, only to be swept off his feet. Another swung a chain, which Seagal used to disarm and neutralize in one fluid motion. By the time the dust settled, the coalition lay defeated, humiliated, and utterly incapable of challenging him again. Seagal emerged from the factory not with triumph, but with calm and quiet confidence. His lesson was clear: underestimating a master has consequences, and true power lies not in aggression, but in control, understanding, and mastery of both mind and body. Back in the dojo, the students now understood the depth of what they had witnessed. Seagal, through his actions, had taught them lessons no words could convey. Respect, patience, strategy, and skill. These were the pillars of true martial mastery. And though many would never face him again, the stories of his encounters would echo through generations. A legend of a foreigner who walked into Japan, faced humiliation, and turned it into a display of unmatched, ruthless, and precise skill. Even today, the whispers remain. In dojos, in bars, in the quiet streets, the tale of Steven Seagal's unmatched skill circulates, proof that mastery, discipline, and unwavering calm can overcome any challenge, any humiliation, and any adversary. His story is a testament to the fact that true power is measured not by force alone, but by the combination of skill, strategy, and the indomitable spirit of a master. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more incredible recaps of legendary fighters, unforgettable battles, and stories of skill and discipline that defy belief. Until next time, remember, respect, mastery, and patience are more powerful than brute force.